Well, I can talk later.
Yep. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Contributor Experience Biweekly meeting of June 22nd. This is an official meeting of the Kubernetes project, and as such, we are subject to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. So please be respectful. With that, we are going to go ahead and get started on our meeting. And so first question here is, can I have a note taker? I will put down, oops, that's the meeting template.
I signed myself up for it. I'll do it.
Gah. Okay, sorry, hold on just a moment. I'm running into the usual problem of having the meeting template at the beginning of the document and scrolling problems. So I need to add a couple things to the agenda. So, because they were in the wrong place. And oh, okay. So with that, let's get started here. Put your name in the attendees if you haven't already. I think everybody has. Mohammed, have you dialed into one of these before?
Yeah, I've been to a few of these, yeah.
Okay, well, then we don't need to do intros. Okay, events. We don't necessarily have everybody here for the events, so let's just run through them really quickly. Office hours. Do we have anybody involved with office hours here right now?
As far as I know, they're still happening, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. Skip over community meeting. Laura's not joining us right now. And so I don't necessarily know what's going on with July's community meeting.
Open source summit's going on right now, so a lot of folks are there. I did.
Yeah, a lot of folks are there. Yep. But contributor summit.
So for this, we'll be ramping things back up in July after the holiday. You can expect a flurry of comms and things like that, calling for volunteers, and probably early July at this point.
Okay.
I don't think we don't have any immediate deadlines or anything like that associated with it right now.
Yeah, let me link to the retro here too, because it hasn't been linked from. Oh, and what just happened?
I can grab the retro link if you want.
Okay. It's Google Docs being funny with me. Yeah, we had a retro from the EU meeting with some lessons learned, etc. One of the big efforts there, if somebody wanted something to work on, is trying to make the list of messages and templates that we have for all of the messaging that needs to go out around the Contributor Summit comprehensive. We added a bunch of additional messaging for EU, but I'm not necessarily convinced that we captured everything. Okay. Steering election discussed below because it's more complicated than that. Other events.
I don't think there's really anything else.
One other thing is in-person Kubernetes Community Day type events are starting to happen again. Do we want to reach out to the organizers of those events and find out if they need anything contributor-wise? And the corollary to that question would be, do we have anybody in the SIG who would be interested in being in charge of that sort of outreach? Because some of these KCDs in the past, like the reason why we have the current portable version of the new contributor workshop is because they started using it at KCDs in Asia. So
I do not know the status of that deck, or
it's still around. I don't know if it's been particularly updated, but
yeah, the last one I
The,
looked at had like 80 slides in it added for doing the like KK walkthrough,
okay.
but that was the
Yep. So that's the question is, so I will add I'm going to assign to myself putting out on SIG ContribEx channels to see if somebody's interested in being responsible for that, because it would be a nice sort of isolatable task that somebody who only has a couple hours a week to contribute could take on. Okay. Anything else in events? Okay, mentoring. Meet our contributors. I know that the blog stuff has been ongoing because I've been approving the blog posts. And these are the mostly the blogs from Asia.
yeah, we haven't done a video one, and honestly, I don't see them coming back anytime soon.
Aside from time to organize and MC them, are there other blockers?
Volunteers and not rehashing the same questions over and over again.
Is the recent one merged? Like I think there was a PR opened recently in KDev regarding the China blog post, and there was some date confusion regarding a Saturday release date or something. Is that thing done?
Yeah, did that? I thought that went ahead and got published.
Okay, I guess that thing would. Let me just check it.
Let me see. Oh no, it did not get published.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I
we
think
still have.
we need to.
There is still a hold on it. Okay. Oh, right, because there's still text that needs to be revived in the blog post.
Oh, okay.
The,
Oh, all right. I'll reach out to Jess regarding the changes and we'll get it this week.
yeah, so I mean, the problem is there's some wording in there that just doesn't work, like grammatically. And
Yeah.
I fix the stuff that I can fix without knowing more, but there's stuff that I can't fix. And the problem is that we keep going in the cycle where I say this still needs to be fixed. And then we wait a couple of days, and then Jayesh comes back and say, is it ready now? And I'm like, no, it's not ready. You haven't changed anything.
Oh, all right. I'll take care of it. And next meet our contributors blog meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so okay. Yeah, one of the, by the way, I started a discussion in Docs about changing the process by which we edit these blog posts, because editing by GitHub comment is incredibly inefficient. And it's painful for both the editor and the writer. But that discussion hasn't concluded yet. So
I know in the past, like it depends on the author, but we've like done a first draft and first round of reviews in like HackMD or Google Docs, and then dropped it in there. But that's really just depended on the author.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the talk is about officially switching to a process where the first stage of drafting is some form of editable doc, such as a Google Doc or HackMD, instead of moving straight to a PR. And that in fact, we don't move to a PR until the blog post is actually scheduled to be published. Because one of the other really painful things about the current process of, oh, we're not publishing this on Tuesday, can you update the date? So
I know for the contributor site right now, it's set to publish everything, including future events. That's just a
Mhm.
Hugo flag if we want to remove it. And then it would automatically publish on the next automatic rebuild. Nightly rebuild.
Mhm. Yep. So the okay. So okay. So the view on actual video mock is that if we were to start it up again, we would want to do something to change the format in an effort to get in an effort to make it more interesting to potential contributors, basically.
Yeah. And
In which case, my first thought, not that I have the bandwidth to organize this, would be to have something where we actually do contributor training followed by Q&A. So that is like, 30 minutes on doing an API review followed by Q&A,
those have been
which
the
would
more
obviously
successful
be harder
things
to
in the past.
organize, but
Yeah.
more
They
valuable.
they have been the more successful things in the past.
Okay. Okay. Nobody else has an update on group mentoring in Paris's absence, do they? Okay. Community management, Nigel.
Yeah. So I got creds. So I was able to make some progress. So right now, doing it in pieces with Zapier. I can reliably. So I made a separate account on the Zoom that I'm trying all this out on. So it won't affect anything that anybody else is doing. It's only enabled for my channel on Zoom. But what I have reliably working is making a recording in Zoom and seeing that show up in Google Drive. Now, what I haven't yet tested is like doing it with naming and like making a bunch of recordings. But I did do one where I did do two where they came through just fine. And I want to try as well. I know part of the problem has been if we pause a recording, two videos get created. And if that's going to be an issue, it'd be great to identify that now and we can problem solve around it. But yeah, for now, things are happening with able to get Zoom to Google Drive. And then we'll do the second piece after some more testing.
Cool. That will save a lot of pain.
Yeah, hope so. Chris sent me this other tool that I have to check out. But yeah, I will report back once I evaluate that as well.
Okay. Let us know. Other community sort of management things. So one of the things that we actually did among Slack admins approved by ContribEx a while ago was separate out community surveys from commercial surveys. So commercial surveys, if they're going to announce on Slack, they have to use the surveys channel and can't use other channels. and we don't basically support them with any kind of comms resources. Community surveys, on the other hand, are ones that are actually generated by a SIG or team or some other community group, and we do support them with comms resources, and they can announce in all kinds of places as appropriate. However, something has come up now where we might need kind of a separate policy, which is academic surveys. So that is surveys attached to an actual sort of accredited university where there has been some communication with the community on the content and purpose of the survey. How we want to treat those in terms of policy. Like, for example, should an accredited academic survey be allowed to advertise the survey on Kubernetes users? Which is an area where we've banned commercial surveys. Mostly because, honestly, the week before we did that, fully 1/3 of the traffic on Kubernetes users was commercial surveys. Whether or not we want to offer them any kind of comms resources, whether or not any other communication channels should be available to them. I would say it takes as a guarantee that they need to meet certain minimum requirements, things that I call the quasi GDPR requirements, which is that the survey has to have a header announcing who is taking the survey, why they're taking the survey, and how the data will be handled, and also how to get your data excluded.
And that the resulting paper, whatever it is, has to be public and not paywalled behind.
Yes, and not paywalled. You're right. So
I'd also, like, outside of the header and all that, just general review for sanity check.
yes, I remember the original format of that particular survey because I helped her revise it. And I'm like, I can see why you would want to ask the question, but I can't see why anyone would want to answer it. Or be able to answer it for that matter. So speaking of, so my thought would be that they're allowed to send to Kubernetes users or other appropriate channels, depending on the nature of the survey. Like if it's a survey on networking, it might go to SIG network if they meet those requirements.
Yeah, I think it'd just be a conversation on to determine what outlets are appropriate.
Yep. Okay, and then the same would go for any kind of comms boosting, is that we would just decide whether or not, because probably they would only get comms boosting if it was kind of a massive important survey.
Yep.
Because we have enough of our own surveys to boost.
The other thing,
Speaking of which, we just closed off the KK branch rename survey. And SIG release is deciding what to do with the data.
One other thing, at least with the surveys and determining comms and all that, is that the blog subproject needs to know that people can open PRs to publish, like to advertise their surveys and all that directly, at least third-party ones, because that was an issue last time as well. With the original survey in its pre-revised form, had a blog post that was to be published on the Kubernetes blog, asking for people to.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it would be hard for me to imagine a survey for which publishing on the Kubernetes blog would be appropriate.
People have.
I mean, they can ask, sure, but that doesn't mean they'll be approved.
The big thing is that the at least the original blog reviewers did not see an issue with some of those posts. So that's why it's just like, make sure that the
Okay,
other,
yeah. So, okay, so I need to talk to the blog posts about the difference between project surveys and third-party stuff. I mean, my general attitude, and I'll need to talk to the blog folks about this, is we just shouldn't be publishing third-party stuff on the Kubernetes blog, period. If companies need to publish it, that's what the CNCF blog is for. And like I said, I can imagine doing it for a really big survey, right? If the University of Maastricht, in combination with MIT, wanted to do this huge survey of open source development, et cetera, that was going to take multiple years and involve, hundreds of recipients, that I can see
I know that
blogging about that. But for a smaller survey, no.
Yeah, I know the blog team is in the process of revising their guidelines on things like this. So this is mostly just a good time to get in a FYI, like, hey, make sure this is codified as policy.
Okay. Does somebody else want to carry that, or do I need to carry that? Because somebody needs to actually bring it up on the blog stuff.
I can bring it up.
Okay.
I'm still technically an owner for that sub-project.
Okay.
One question in my mind about this is, would we want to create a Slack channel for these third parties to throw their surveys into a void?
We have one.
We have one.
All right.
We have one.
Good to know that exists.
Yep. It's the survey Slack channel. Anybody can post any survey on there at any time. The Kubernetes project in the header specifically makes no guarantee that the surveys are appropriate or even safe.
Nice.
So and that was the other reason to take them off of Kubernetes users, because since our own users did not know the difference, they could actually be entrapped into answering some sort of, spam or PII harvesting thing, thinking it was coming from the project. So okay. If that's all, anything else on community management? Okay. I called out elections as its own item because planning some major developments there. I'm currently working on launching the election sub-project as discussed and approved several months ago. It's been waiting because it's got a bunch of complicated moving parts, including upgrading our election software in the same sort of process. In the meantime, I actually put out a call on Slack for who's interested in participating in this. For clarity for the soundtrack, the difference here is the election sub-project is a separate but overlapping group with the election officers. So the election officers are 3 people who are specifically appointed to run the annual steering election, and that rotates every year. The election sub-project is going to be more in charge of ongoing election stuff. So making sure that the documentation gets improved and updated, which it desperately needs right now, because there's an awful lot of the documentation specifically about civs still, for example. Helping support the election software and our deployment of it together with Kate's infra. And one of the other things is, now that we have the election software, any SIG work group, team, whatever within Kubernetes can actually launch their own preference election at any time. And so we just need to approve that and help them with the data formats for how do I generate an election. Oh, and the other thing is that the new election subproject will be recommending election officers for steering to approve. So taking away the let's search for election officers from whatever random steering member gets assigned to it every year. and instead offering them a slate of people that they could approve from. Speaking of which, I don't know who put Dims in there, but I am thrilled if Dims is available.
Yep. Dims, because Dims cannot run again. He volunteered to be a former steering member on the election committee.
Okay. We will need a third election officer. So if somebody feels like helping run the steering election, we will also be looking for that.
Yeah. Like 3 is also, I'd say, is the minimum.
Yeah. And honestly, the main job for the election officers is a lot of reminding people that they need to vote. And fixing people's candidate profiles, because YAML formatting. Those are the 2 big tasks, honestly, from a time perspective. Since we got rid of civs, the other things have become not as painful as they used to be. So just here's the thing I wanted to check with the group about. So my current plan is to keep the election sub project under the community repo. I don't see any good reason why it needs to have its own repo. Well, I do see some reasons why it'd be good for it to have its own repo, but they don't feel compelling. Because we already basically have all the documents in the community repo. I can just move them to a new folder. The election software is designed to work with a folder within a larger repo, because that's what we had when we started. But if somebody knows something I don't, that where it would make sense to move all the election stuff to a separate repo, let me know.
Is
So
this election software ready to be deployed?
It's already deployed. We used it for the last steering election.
Okay.
Go to elections.ks.io, because it's still up. We're gonna have to take it down as part of moving stuff around, because I'm going to be changing the folder structure for the elections, and Electo identifies which election is which by its file location. So that needs to not happen while Electo is running.
Okay.
That's on Electo's to-do list. But one of the problems with GitOps is, how else do you identify things if not by their file location? Okay, so in that case, I'm currently working on a PR. All of that will be going into an elections folder, which will be directly under the root of Kubernetes community. So the parts of elections that are under events will be coming out of there. First stage will be to just move that all under that folder. Second stage will be to extract the docs from the individual annual election folders and put them into an election/docs folder, which I'll do as a separate PR. And so just look out for that. And then that will have to be coordinated, because I'll need to work with Kate's infra to shut down the election software while we're doing that moving around. Also, somebody asked us in Slack, Electo has been updated to deal with the issue that we had last year around being able to recast your ballot. And so that is fixed. And we enhanced a couple of other potential security problems identified by, not enhanced them. We patched a couple of other potential security problems identified by the security team, very helpfully, in the meantime. And if nobody has any questions about that, we can move on to marketing.
Alrighty.
And I can go ahead and take notes. Will you?
Okie dokie. So we didn't have our meeting last week because I got messed up by travel. Got me. So the current things we have in progress, though, are renaming of our stuff generally to contributor comms rather than marketing, which Chris started off this process. I don't know who put these questions in there. If that was Chris.
I
or if it
did.
was Bob or Josh.
Because
Awesome.
I have some PRs against contributor site to change the references,
Okay.
but obviously you want those to go in on pretty much the same day that the folders are actually changed.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I just want to know what the timing is.
That's a good question.
Okay.
So I know that Chris, I was working with him at the end of last week to document what needs to happen for the rest of that process. Chris is also in the process of stepping away from the group so that he can focus on some other priorities of his. So we're kind of doing the handoff while we're finishing off this like last thing of his. So we'll have to figure that out. So I guess I should talk with you, Josh, as I look over all of that and figure out what timing we want. Okay. So Castle.
Okay. So presumably you are also on a recruitment drive for the comms team, yeah?
Always. We have a lot of really wonderful members who've been coming for a while now. So a major part of this is that we've been working on new role definitions for the groups, for the group. So we're working on figuring out what members we have right now and what they want to do and what that ends up looking like for the team at large, if that makes sense. So we're working on making sure that we have roles to shadow so that people can kind of move up within the group and take on new responsibilities and things like that. So Chris let us know months ago that he was planning on stepping away from the group more this year. So we've been working on getting the whole thing organized this whole time.
Okay. So you got a couple other things in there.
We have a new Slack channel, which was also something started off by Chris that has now finished up. We have the Slack channel. So you can always find us there. If you need to message us, you can use our @ or you can message us in the Slack channel, which was really helpful this week when I missed the meeting and we were able to sync up asynchronously.
So my question is, should we maybe do some comms around the new Slack channel so that SIGs know that if they need comms for something, they can drop it in that channel?
That sounds like a good idea to me. We might want to discuss it in our meeting on Friday because it's new. So we might want to discuss what do we want to use that channel for and how do we want to promote it and things like that.
Yeah. My suggestion for kind of opening it to the SIGs as a way to drop stuff in is just that historically, if somebody tags the comms group in the main ContribEx channel and their timing happens to be bad with people's time zones and travel, they sometimes never get a response. Yeah.
Yep.
Do
agree with that.
And hopefully if we can get the team name renamed, we won't have as much of a problem with GitHub notifications. So
yeah. We're also working on getting we have a team in GitHub now that can actually be like addressed in issues. We're also working on updating the issue template in the community repo, I guess it is, to make sure that it will actually alert the contributor comms group. New work that's ongoing. Cool. And what do we think the announcement of that Slack channel would look like? We can talk about it in SIG ContribEx channel.
Yeah, I mean, first you have to have a comms meeting and decide how you want to use the Slack channel, because I offered my suggestion, but ultimately it is your channel. So
true, but I think we'll probably end up doing that. So I want to go ahead and get some ideas for what that would look like to let people know about that.
Let the release team know.
Let the release team know.
That's the main group I'd want to reach out to, and like chair and TL, just because like the release team is the group that frequently needs to message the contributor base of various things.
Cool.
Okay. No, that is not who I want to notify.
Next thing I have on here is I also wanted to call out that several of our members are working on SIG Spotlight blog posts now. For a lot of them, this is the first time that they'll be writing a blog. So they'll be going through the process like we discussed earlier, where they'll do a HackMD or a Google Doc first, and the contributor comms team will review that before creating a PR.
Okay. Yeah. And so my suggestion for the process of that is share the Google Doc or HackMD with me and SF Tim for copy editing before you submit the PR.
With Josh and or
just because it is so much easier for us to just rip through and fix the punctuation in a doc than to leave 15 comments about you need a comma here.
Absolutely. Awesome. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Anything else for comms?
I think we're good, but I also wanted to call out, since we were mentioning the blog thing, Rashid had a suggestion in the comments, which was basically what we were saying. An author creates the draft in Google Docs, and but he mentioned like the idea that the editor would include the author as a co-committer for the final PR. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, that was, I was going to say that was actually one of the questions, right? Because the workflow that works best for editing is not one that works best for credit.
Yeah.
Right, because the because ultimately the one that works best for editing is that the editor is actually the one who submits the PR, because they're submitting it with the scheduled publication date. And the problem with that is, how do we make sure that the author gets contribution credit for it?
And Rashid said, so adding the original author as a co-committer might also help the author get credit.
Okay.
One note on that.
Okay, I'm going to tag you, Rashid, on this. Except that, of course, I don't know your email address.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one small note on that. In an interview, there's the original author, which is the interviewer in comms, but there's also a someone that gets interviewed. In my specific case, it was from Xin Yang from SIG Storage. Would it make sense to get the interviewee, the person interviews, also in the final approval, just to get to be sure that all the possible little changes that are done during the editing don't actually change anything that would, in their eyes, change the final message that they conveyed?
Yeah, that's also like pretty normal in terms of getting the final approver from.
Okay, so that's standard. Okay, perfect then.
One thing, just looking at time, we're at like 15 minutes left.
Okay, so let's finish off. Rashid, if you can drop your email address in the comments, I actually want to tag you on the co-committer thing, because that's not something that anybody in the blog team knows how to do, and we could use your technical information. Okay, or link to yourself in the notes. I just wanted to assign you that so that we follow up with you on how do we do that. Okay, so yeah, but you're right. We need to outline the interviewee step also in the approval workflow. So, okay, so we have other things. Contributor documentation. Bob, are there any updates?
The big thing is that the team, Eric, and everyone at Lions Way will be starting on the new contributor course. I had a meeting with them this week and expect them to be back and giving regular updates on all this. And the goal is to have the new contributor course part of the contributor site and live before KubeCon North America.
Okay. Do we need to do any restructuring for the contributor site?
There will be a new section carved out for it.
Okay.
It'll be under the contributor docs portion instead of like a top level item, but like, They're looking at the various libraries and things like that to sort of what will give it the best experience, especially as we cannot rely on Katacoda and other things like that anymore.
Okay. Which is a shame because we got this whole Katacoda repo, but the we knew eventually when O'Reilly acquired them, they're going to get a lot more expensive. The okay, GitHub management.
We will have we are expanding our new member coordinators role. Expect a call to go out to the various mailing lists to recruit new member coordinators for that, probably later this week or early next week.
Okay.
We'll also be kicking off another audit to remove a bunch of inactive people. It's been a bit, so I suspect we'll probably have another big one, like 150 people.
Yep. Okay. Okay. And then open items. Mohammed.
Okay. Yeah, so I am working on something for SIG release. So basically they have this interesting problem where every release they have a ton of repos that need alias updates for managing owners of the folders in the repositories. So some poor person goes out every month and every release and makes a ton of changes in a lot of repos, which can be automated. So I put together something that we use in Knative, where own aliases are auto updated. So yeah, that's what the PR does. I had a number of conversations with a lot of people that were like, "Oh, this is not something we do automatically," but reworked the pull request so that it's an opt-in feature, and more importantly, the repositories that we're going to use, all the members, all the aliases that we care about, are going to be GitHub teams anyway. So Bob looked at it. He had some comments. I addressed most of them, all of them, I think. Then there were a number of other people that commented stuff, but I don't see them here. And the things that they're concerned about have been addressed, I think.
And Nikita and Arno also chimed in. At this point, like, I only see this being useful for SIG release. I do not think it belongs in the K-org repo. Like it probably in SIG release's own tooling. Just, you know, if they want to map and manage their syncing of things, that's fine. That's on them. But if it lives in the K-org repo, it essentially puts on the GitHub admins to be the long-term maintainers of it.
Okay. So I mean, that's fine by me. So with that in mind, I'm more than happy to move the contents of the alias syncer into SIG releases repo and leave the Go code that generates the aliases. But it won't have an effect on you. So how does that sound?
If it's outside the K-org repo and say like it aligns with SIG releases workflows, it's all good. It's just not something, you know, the other GitHub admins are comfortable with, like living as part of K-org, just because like it's a workflow that's pretty much just for that one SIG and not everyone at large.
Okay. Is there interest, or does the project think it's a good idea to do that for most of the repos except the most complex ones?
Like 99% of the repos do not sync with GitHub teams, have their own separate owners and owners aliases that do not map to any specific group. The only place that like I can guarantee owners are like essentially SIG leads is the K enhancements repo and the root of K of Kubernetes community, where we're generating. Yeah, like
So I'm
generating
not
the
talking
leads
about
this
changing
way.
owners at all. Those can be individual
Owners
names or-
aliases. Sorry, I mean,
Okay.
like
Yeah, like
that's
a lot
the
of people keep
only
getting
place
that
where I
messed up because the issue is badly titled because they've changed the scope of it.
like even the aliases that are being created under owners aliases, they really only exist in the like where we copy the SIG leads lists over as to like K enhancements and K org. That like there really isn't any other place where they are commonly duplicated.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It's just we found it very frustrating that aliases were out of date and then just decided to force everybody to use GitHub Teams and that's it. And they can cut the memberships how they want by creating all the teams that they wanted. So, okay, that's fine.
Yes, sorry, like I know you you put a lot of work into doing this like initially and all that, but like anything that touches some of these things and we start have to considering it for like everyone and who's going to be like the eventually responsible for owning all the code related to that. That's where it's just like not super cool with it added in the K.org repo.
Yeah, I get it now. So like, I mean, I'm new to the project, so I'm kind of learning talk first, then start shipping things, right? In other places, they're a little bit more forgiving on shipping first and then talking later. But yeah, it's helpful to know.
So I apologize. Like I also didn't respond to you like sooner on that PR. Like honestly, like GitHub notifications are kind of a tire fire for me. So like it's hard for me to like check back in on
It's fine. I understand, right? Yeah, best way to get a hold of somebody is barge into their SIG meeting and say, "Hey, where's my update?" There's a few people out there that owe me a few things, so it's fine. Yeah, all right, that's it from me. So I'm gonna go and make those changes.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I was going to check on what we were waiting for on the chair thing, and apparently the answer is nothing because that just merged. And then over the next couple of weeks, I'll be finding out all of the additional things that I need to change. The
actually need to create like an issue template of the onboarding offboarding checklist for chairs and TLs.
Yep. Caslin, so do we have a buffer account now?
I was going to ask you all.
Oh,
that is a steering question. I can say no, we do not. Right. We've not filed the request.
Request was steering.
There is a request out there. I need to see if there was enough X on it for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So I need to monitor the steering request.
We have
just wrote 3s.
Yeah, we have 3X on there we essentially need 2 more. My suggestion is to just toss another at steering committee you mentioned in the steering committee Slack channel.
Okay.
I will also ping people again as a reminder to please, +1. After that, a steering member will basically open up the funding request for the CNCF to do it.
Cool. If you send me the link to that
already done
request, okay, cool. I'll try to monitor that. Thank you.
So anything else in our 2 remaining minutes?
Nothing major, just one small doubt. Should I reshare my ACMD 6 storage spotlights document in the ContribEx channel? Because I think I did it on the ContribEx comms one, so maybe it's it's useful to share it on the other one.
I think we should go through a round of reviews with the ContribEx comms folks, and then.
Okay, so let it be first as is, and then we can open it up. Perfect. Thank you.
Do kind of rounds.
Aslin.
That sound good to you, Josh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that's probably going to happen is Tim and I will join the
ContribEx channel,
the comms channel,
right? The
comms channel. Now that I know that it exists,
probably a good idea.
Okay, so that solves it both ways. So yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll write it up in the proposed workflow is that basically, except for stuff that's specifically SIG ContribEx, Tim and I are basically there to be copy editors, which honestly most blog post drafts need. So that's kind of a second stage after the content is done. Then we get the punctuation and grammar, etc. correct.
Yep.
Formatting.
Yeah, our process had been that we would do a round of reviews in HackMD or Google Docs within contributor comms, and then we'd create the GitHub PR for those types of reviews. So we'll just move that part into the Google Docs and HackMD process as well.
Yep. And let me tag myself on that, because since this is actually I don't know if I have a thing there. I'm already working with the blog folks. Okay. Okay, and we are at time. So if anybody has anything else, take it to the Slack channel or to the mailing list less frequently. See everybody later. Thanks for contributing.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Later.